this camera here. And get rid of that. All right. Sorry, this is taking me so long. But at least I have an awesome studio and I'm here with you guys. Tess, are we live everywhere? This is not
You
our normal
sure?
time. Oh, great. That's awesome to hear. Okay, so I've got an awesome presentation today and I'm very excited to be jumping in with you guys. You may have access to our Zoom conference that's also here. So if you're in the chat, if you're in the Zoom conference, you have audio into my ear. So please ask me questions along the way. We're going to be sharpening your streaming skills today. And I am looking at the chat. Good afternoon, Bobby. How's it going? Hi, Donald. Thank you for joining us. Eddie, how you doing? Laszlo, good to be here. Rick, Sean, so glad you're all here. The Master, Epic Zen Master. Okay, cool. So everybody's here. We're super excited to launch into sharpening your streaming skills. And this is an Ask Me Anything kind of stream. So you can ask Tess to jump into the Zoom session and we can actually chat one-on-one in real time. Or you can just ask questions directly on YouTube. I'm looking at the YouTube chat today. All right, so let's jump into it. Sharpening your streaming skills. So we got some tips from really a lot of pros in the industry. Tom Sinclair, Tim Vandenberg, Jim Bask. A lot of people gave us some tips that everyone should kind of know about streaming. Streaming is so popular right now, and it's a great business to be in right now specifically. So we're doing a dealer training. This is part of our dealer training, and we hope that we can bring everybody up to speed, and you can use the knowledge that you learn here and apply it to many local businesses around your area who you can help live stream as a service, sell equipment, and all kinds of things that you could actually have a business doing. So that's what we're talking about today. So live streaming has really taken off. When Facebook started, it was about 2016, Facebook Live started. And before that, Facebook would get billions and billions of views every day. And what Facebook found out and made public is that people will watch live video 3 times longer than they will a recorded video. And live video has really just since then become more and more and more popular with esports, gaming, streaming on many, many platforms from Instagram to Twitter to literally private content delivery networks, new ones showing up every day, Twitch, Amazon, Facebook, YouTube, you name it. It's really blowing up, and it's a great way for businesses to get the message out in a timely fashion. And that's why it's really become so popular, along with really a boom in mobile internet connectivity. So you'd be surprised how many people watch live streams on their smartphones, which are connected to usually Wi-Fi, but 4G, 5G coming, high bandwidth ability to watch HD video. Now, a lot of people start out, and a lot of churches start out this way. A lot of businesses start out with just a phone, and that's okay. It basically costs nothing. You can get set up really easily. Then they move to like a computer. And whether you're just using a computer and a webcam and a microphone, you start to upgrade things. And then when you start to really get successful, whether you're generating a lot of leads for your business or you are starting to sell a lot more products or services or exclusive subscriptions, however you're monetizing your business, you start to think, maybe I should set up a studio. Maybe I should have a professional event. And our business has had great success with events lately. We did one just 2 days ago, and it was awesome. We reached thousands of people without having to leave our studio. So you start to think, should I build a professional studio? And then some people even go to the level of television quality broadcast, which no longer costs millions of dollars. You can be part of the solution. You can provide services and equipment to many, many businesses, especially as we're coming back from the coronavirus and thinking about equipping physical spaces. But even during the coronavirus epidemic, places like churches and educational facilities trying to get equipped for creating video, streaming video, recording video during this time. Now, there's going to be a learning curve when you start learning how to do live streaming. This is going to be something that is just for everybody. There's a little bit of a slow beginning, and that's maybe where you are now. Then you're going to start to have a steep acceleration. You're going to start to really get good. And eventually you're going to get to the point where you know enough about live streaming that you can help others. And that's where we want to get you today. So the most basic live streaming setup is like a webcam. So I've actually got a webcam right here. This is the PTZOptics webcam. Let me see if I can show this here. This webcam, which I'm actually showing off on our Zcam, this is our PTZOptics webcam. And these are available from all of our dealers and distributors. You have access to these at discounted prices so that you can resell them to your customers. It's 2 microphones, and it's just a USB connection to your computer. 1080p video quality, but it also is a little bit better than a Logitech in the sense that you can color match them. You can really set them up nicely. See my little Zcam here. We'll talk about multi-camera systems in a moment here, but you can take a webcam and you can help your customer get started with a webcam and a microphone. That's like a very basic setup. And technically, it's kind of like the core of many setups that grow upon that. For example, many people purchase camcorders. Now, obviously, it's nice if somebody purchases a PTZ camera, because then instead of having to manually move the camera around, it's automated. And that's really where we're headed with this conversation. But you can get a camcorder and you can zoom that in quite a distance. And camcorders are pretty affordable, but most camcorders do not have a USB output. So that is where this USB capture card comes in right here. So we've got this USB capture card, and that is a great little product that Magewell uses. We can look at some of those capture cards. I can answer questions about capture cards. It converts to USB 3, and it can come into your computer. And now that we're at the computer stage, we can start using live streaming software like OBS, Wirecast, and vMix. Depending on how much time we have today, I was going to do a little bit of a deep dive into OBS and show that software off. So that could be fun as well. Now, from an audio perspective, most people purchase something called a USB audio interface. So this USB audio interface here, really popular. You can plug any audio mixer into it. A lot of churches already have an existing audio mixer, and they plug that in, and they can get all their microphones, all their speakerphones, everything, all their microphones and sources into the computer via USB. Now, we can start adding things to this, like, for example, maybe 2 PTZ cameras, and maybe we run SDI cabling to them. Again, we're using 2 capture cards here. And then we can have a computer in the middle, and we can connect multiple monitors to that computer. Now, in this example, we have video production software at the top. This is for a church. We have a full screen video in the middle. And then at the bottom, we have presentation software like PowerPoint. That's a 3-monitor setup. It's nice to have a couple monitors because you can do a lot with screen captures and screen grabbing, for example. Now, cameras can generally be controlled in 2 ways. One, they can be controlled over Ethernet. You can connect them to your local area network. And really quickly, I will show what that looks like with my Zcam here. The back of this PTZOptics camera, you can see we can plug it right into Ethernet. And Ethernet, it has the ability to deliver power. So you can power the camera right over the network, but you can also control it over the network. And so, for example, I have my iOS camera control app here, and we can control all of the PTZ cameras. I can control 8 cameras with my smartphone. So it's something that we'll look at in more detail as we move forward. But this is the serial joystick, and this is a really affordable little joystick. Very, very plug and play, easy to use, and you can cascade camera control with this. Now, I'm going to throw at you guys some random but important rules of thumb when it comes to streaming. And one is something called the 180-degree shutter speed rule. And what it says is that your shutter speed should essentially be 1/2 of your frame rate. So basically, if you are streaming, or should be double your frame rate. So for example, if you are streaming at 30 frames per second, you should probably do your shutter speed. You lock your shutter speed at 1/60th of a second. Now, for those of you that know camera exposure and aperture and shutter speed, you know that if the shutter speed is open for a long amount of time, things can kind of look, too blurry, right? If the shutter speed's open for 1 second and things are moving really fast, our eyes see things in like 24 frames per second. That's how many frames we see. And if there's too many frames per second, or if the shutter speed's moving too quickly, then things look like a soap opera. Like there's no motion, right? You want to see a little motion. So if you are streaming in 30 frames a second, I recommend setting the cameras to 30 frames a second and using a shutter speed of 1/60th a second, if that makes sense. That is the 180-degree shutter speed rule. So if you have multiple cameras, you kind of want them all to be set at the same frame rate. Now, if you're streaming in 60 frames a second for sports, then you would be able to use a faster shutter speed, like 1/20th a second. Now, this is something I really want to tell people about because I do believe the number one issue with live streaming for folks who are just getting started is getting the audio and video in sync. Can you believe that? Who in the chat has had an issue with audio and video sync? I would love to know, because I've had so many issues with it that I really, really wanted to share this tool. Now, what this tool does, and I'm going to bring up the tool here so you guys can see this in action. Audio video sync tool. You can download it for free. So when you download it, you can just go to search for Stream Geeks Audio Video Sync Tool. And I'm going to pull it up here and I'm going to talk about how to use this tool to sync your audio and video. So what this tool does is it basically makes a clicking sound. Now I'm going to turn it on really quickly so we can hear the clicking sound. Ready? Ready? Okay, because the clicking sound is important. So what you can do with this tool is you can kind of keep it on loop. This is Windows Media Player here. What I do is just kind of have it repeat and play. And you can record it. You can just play it on a computer, have the audio playing. You can record it. And you can take a look at that file. And you can see how far your audio and video is out of sync. Now, this is really, if you really want to, I really wanted to get it perfect. But to be honest, you can really just spitball it and fix this a lot. So here's Gregory Brooks saying, yes, he's had this problem before. Donald Fair has had this problem before. And Shaggy Mummy saying, can we get the link in the chat? Yes, I think Tess will share that link for you guys if you want to join the Zoom session and ask questions directly through Zoom, which we do have set up here. So in general, video takes longer to process than audio because audio is less data, right? Video is more data. It's easier to stream the radio than it is to stream HD television, right? So, or listen to the radio or stream audio online. So you can bet that your audio is coming in faster than your video. And you can bet that it's probably less than 100 milliseconds. So in this scenario, we've got a PTZ camera connected to a frame grabber or a capture card that's connected to vMix. And it's got about 75 milliseconds, which is nothing. It's not even 1/10 of a second, but it's maybe just enough to just make you mad and want it better. And then the other one over here is the audio processing, which has only got 25 milliseconds of delay. So what do? We just add 50 milliseconds of delay to the audio and they'll both be matched up. So with that being said, we can essentially add audio delay to the audio. Just if you've ever got a delay issue, just add 25 milliseconds, add 50 milliseconds, add 100 milliseconds until you see it correct itself. That's a really easy way to fix that scenario. Now, speaking of just in general technology, USB 2.0, when you plug in a audio device, you're not using a lot of bandwidth. You're using maybe 128 kilobits per second. Not a heck of a lot. If there's a lot of channels, maybe more. But when you plug in a USB 3.0 port, you're getting like a lot more data. You know, I think I'm trying to remember. It's definitely in the neighborhood, I think, of like 2 or 3 gigabytes, 1 gigabit per second. Then when you get a PCIe card, that is a card that you can slip into your computer that gets a direct lane into your processor of your computer on the motherboard. You're getting, 5, 10, about 5 gigabits per second. And then finally, Thunderbolt, the super fast one, you can actually get up to 10 gigabits per second with that. So just to kind of understand that, those kind of data transfer rates there. And then again, using the tool here, it's color coded. There's a little audio sync, thing there that you can look at to get a better idea. And then you could even take it into a video production software and find where those clicks are and figure out exactly how much you need. Now here's a slide. Now I love all of these companies, okay, but I want to be brutally honest about which ones are easier to use and which ones are not so easy to use. Because at the end of the day, the ones that are more feature rich, the ones that have lots and lots of features, are generally harder to use. So like Facebook, you can go to Facebook, you can go to YouTube, you can plug in a webcam, and you can live stream, and it's so easy. But it doesn't have lower thirds. It doesn't have multi-camera production transitions. It doesn't have multi-streaming capabilities, right? So the harder it is to use, the more features it will likely have. And what you want to kind of figure out is, how much time are you going to spend with this? Because you're going to get better and better at it. And eventually you're going to want to have a software that gives you all the things that you want to be able to do. So your job as someone who's helping consult or, make a project come alive, then you want to have probably a software that has enough features to do everything that your client and your customers and your friends want, the members of your church, all the things that they want to see. So, and generally the issue is you need to make a purchasing decision on which software you're going to buy. Now, OBS is great and it's free and it has a lot of great features built in. Plus there's plugins. So you can do a lot. I've seen some amazing productions done with OBS, really some of the most on Twitch, some of the most detailed streams I've ever seen. So I want to help you guys make the right decision. If you have any questions, let me know. I think that you'll be able to do that. But if you're in the Zoom meeting, just jump in. Unmute your microphone. Please say whatever you want. Don't worry about interrupting me. I just got that from you, Shaggy Mummy. Please just jump in. I'm happy. Camilo loves vMix. OBS, very slow on the MacBook. Are you here, Tess? Can you hear me on the Zoom call?
I am here. I can hear you.
Okay, cool. If anybody wants to jump in, jump in. Ask as many questions as you want. Okay. So I said that we would do a little deep dive into OBS. And we're going to do a little bit of a high-level OBS vMix Wirecast look. And then we'll do a deeper dive into OBS because that's the real popular one. But this is OBS in studio mode. Now, when you first get OBS, it's not in studio mode, meaning you only see one picture in the middle, and that's stupid simple, right? It's good. Keep it simple. But if you want studio mode, what that does is it gives you a preview screen and an output screen. So you can kind of make changes in the preview screen and then transition it to what's going to be live streaming. And fundamentally, from a streaming video production perspective, that's what everybody does. You kind of line up what you want to do, and then you take it live. So it gives you a little like working space before you bring it to the next space. Now in the bottom, what you're seeing here is a sources area and a scenes area. Now this is new to a lot of people. I know many of you are probably experts with OBS, but a scene is like a preset up thing where you've got maybe a specific scene with a specific camera angle with a specific lower third. And then in that scene is where you have your sources. So your sources might be a camera, an image, a video clip, something that might be cropped, picture in picture, and you pull all that together into a scene. And that way you can just click through your scenes and they're pretty much ready to go. You can click them to go live right away, or you can bring them into your preview screen and transition to them. It's kind of like a step-by-step process. Now, with OBS, you have the ability to configure some settings. So that's always good. You can go in, configure your settings. There's a lot of different settings. We'll talk about a few of them today. You have the ability to add scenes. You also have a layering system. And you'll see this in most video production softwares, is the ability to have layers. So maybe one thing on top of another, picture in picture. You can do lots of different layers, which is always good. Now, when we're putting it all together, I talked about this in our Accelerated Broadcast Club curriculum class, is that you might want to have like an animated sidebar, maybe a PNG for an informational square, a live video feed, unique scenes, adding buttons, and then each piece of media is in that sources area. So if that makes sense. Now, this is vMix. So we're going to look at OBS, vMix, and Wirecast, some of the most popular ones. vMix, by default, always has preview and live output. Getting some questions in here. I definitely want to answer them. I'll do that in a moment. But you got your preview and your output, and then in the center, you have your transitions. Looks actually a lot like OBS. And then each source in vMix is like a little square in the bottom there. And so you can, when you click a source, generally it goes into the preview screen, and then you transition to it. And vMix and OBS and Wirecast all have hotkeys. So you can actually use hotkeys to automate things, like you can hit the space bar, boom, it transitions for you. So you can make it really easy from an operator standpoint. Now, other things to look at, and vMix, Wirecast, OBS, very similar in this. There's a full screen output. So this is really powerful. A lot of people use this in different ways. You can have a full screen output. Could be any input, or it could be just your output, your total mixed output. And you can actually send that to an extra monitor, which is great. But you can also send it to lots of monitors. So, and there's a couple different ways to do that. The NDI is a great one, and we'll talk a little bit about IP networking towards the end of this presentation. But that full screen button either populates one screen, maybe it's your second screen, maybe it's a third screen. We actually have in this studio, let's see here. Let's see if I could do this, because I kind of want to do something a little bit fun here. This is going to show you. Whoop. See that screen right there? That's a full screen output. That's what I'm looking at right now. That is a full screen output from our video production system. So I can see what I'm doing, which is really nice. Is that good? Got to get myself in focus here. Anyway, we'll do that later. So that is what full screen can do. And you can have it go to multiple screens. So you can use a distribution system to do that. Now here's Wirecast. Wirecast is a little different. Wirecast does more of a layering system, but there's still a preview and an output. So Wirecast has 5 layers. A little bit different, but still really nice. It has really an input properties bar on the left. Wirecast output moves and changes, so you can kind of have it slide things in and out as needed. And then it's got the video preview, output, transitions, and the inputs are all down there. But the difference is where vMix and really OBS in a way. So OBS, all the sources are in scenes. With vMix, all of your sources are just in vMix. And then in Wirecast, they're all in specific layers. So they're all quite different, to be honest. Now, high level, I just want to make sure everyone remembers, when we're talking about streaming, we're really talking about a little bit of networking, just a little bit. You've got your router, which has your internet service provider. Maybe there's a firewall. You've got a network switch that your computer's plugged into, and you might even have some wireless access points. Outside of that local area network is Facebook and YouTube. So we use something called RTMP to stream to YouTube and Facebook. It's the way it works. RTMP has been around for a long time. RTSP is the new version. Now, when we're streaming an RTMP stream, there's bit rates involved. And the bit rate is essentially the data. The rate at which we're sending data through the internet is the bit rate. And a 2 megabit bit rate versus a 6 megabit bit rate is a big difference. So the difference between 1080p and 4K doesn't matter as much as bit rate. You can have a 2 megabit 4K and a 6 megabit 1080p, and a 6 megabit will always be better. The bit rate is really the most important thing with streaming. It is the quality. That is the amount of data that you're sending. It doesn't matter how big your painting canvas is. It matters how much paint that you put on it, in it, if that helps you kind of visualize this. So I like to do like 3 or 4 megabits per second, but you should really do an internet speed test to just double check. So just double check your internet speeds and see what you can do. If you have, and we're looking at upload speed. So if you have 10 megabits of upload speed, only use half of what you have. Leave some headroom. Leave some room for error. Things fluctuate a little bit. You might need to use it for a little bit of something else. So don't use all of your upload speeds for your bitrate stream up. And then you can also use something called restreaming as well to, you can stream, if you want to stream to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, look at restream.io, look at Easy Live, look at these solutions that way you can only send one stream, one high quality stream to the cloud, and they can redistribute for you to save you on your bitrate. Now I want to look at a case study from Griswold High School Elementary School. One of my favorite case studies, and if you can wrap your head around what they're doing, you're going to become a lot more powerful as a live streaming consultant and somebody who can help others put together much more powerful live streaming systems. So basically, the way they have it set up, by the way, is really awesome. And if you have any educational clients, a local school, they probably have a morning announcements crew. Now, obviously, all the schools are shut down right now, so this is probably not going to be happening anytime soon. So it's not necessarily a good target market for you right now, but the case study itself is going to help, I think, wrap your heads around IP networking and what you can do. So let's start with the main vMix computer. So they're using vMix here. And just like we showed in a couple different of these scenarios, they've got an audio mixer. Okay, there's 2 microphones connected to a USB audio interface. They've got 2 cameras. One of the cameras both of them have teleprompters actually. And one of the cameras is for the on-air talent, and the other one is for the weatherman. The weatherman actually has a green screen behind him. So they chroma key that. When you have a green screen, you can chroma key that video and put something else behind it. And they also have 2 confidence monitors. So they're doing exactly what I was talking about with that full screen output on vMix. They have an HDMI splitter. It's also known as a DA, distribution amplifier. So they're taking the HDMI that was going to go to their second monitor, and they're just splitting it. They've probably got a 1 HDMI in, 4 HDMI out, because they've got 1 monitor here and 2 over here. Maybe they've got another one. Maybe they're not using all 4. But essentially, they've taken that one full high definition video output, the full screen output of the mix, and they're using it so that way everyone can see what's going out live. And that's called a confidence monitor. And that is what we're doing right over here as well. Remember, we looked at that over there as well. Boop, right there. I have it more set so I can show close-ups that are in focus. Okay. So the cool thing about this, one of the things I love, now we're getting to the IP networking side of this. And hopefully this, if you can wrap your head around what's going on here, you're really going to start getting how stuff we're doing here works, and really affordably ways you can set up magic for your customers and yourselves in your own live streams. There's a second computer. And this second computer actually has the weatherman slides. And the weatherman, now we're talking about maybe a 12-year-old kid. He's the weatherman for the morning announcement show. He's standing in front of a green screen, and he has a PowerPoint remote. And he clicks that PowerPoint remote, and it changes the slides on that second computer. And that second computer is connected over the local area network using NDI, the same way my computer right now is actually being used with this video production system. So this computer right here, this computer's on the local area network. It's sending video all the way to that computer over our local area network. It's the same scenario there. So as they move those slides and the weatherman's talking about what he's doing, it is the background for the weatherman. They chroma key the weatherman on top of the weatherman's slides. And then there's a third computer. This is just a MacBook, not even really network connected. Well, it's network connected, but it's not really a powerful computer. And that one is used for character generation. And so people can actually edit the titles over the local area network. And you can do that with Wirecast using New Blue Title Effect Editor. You can do that with OBS if you have a second OBS system that is using NDI. So now we're talking about network connectivity, just a local area network where there are 4 computers all working together. It's mind-blowing because what you would have needed to do this 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it would have been $1 million. 5 years ago, it would have been 100,000. Now here we are in 2020. You can set this up with I think you could do this with one vMix license or Wirecast or OBS. OBS would be even less expensive. That second computer can use NDI scan converter, a free NDI tool to bring in that. And by the way, this works great for churches as well, so that the pastor can have the slides on his computer, send them back to the live streaming computer. That third computer is just using something that I'm using actually right here, to be honest. This right here, let me see if I can get this real close so you guys can really see this. This is vMix controller here. So I'm controlling the cameras, boop, boop, over the local area network. It's that simple. So that's what they're doing. And you can also use that to input text into lower thirds. You can use it as a controller. And then there's a fourth computer that actually just takes the output of vMix, which is free. And you can do that with OBS. You can do that with Wirecast. And they just take that output with a computer and they output it to the public television station. So they're on TV. They're on cable television in their local area. So I just find it fascinating. And if you can wrap your head around that, then you can wrap your head around a lot of other things. This is the same thing, just a little differently. And that Devos video server that's where that channel is coming from, I believe. I think that Devos video server, I have to ask Kyle Gunderman about that. That may actually be a local area network delivery for the classrooms to bring, or I think the classrooms might actually have cable television. They have the coax cabling and they can pull it in through the public television station so that all the classrooms in the school can now view the television feed. So that is how that system is set up. And they use this character generator app via Chrome to do the character generation. Now, again, thank you, Martin. Martin's saying it's a very good explanation. Well, thank you, Martin. I appreciate it. If anyone has any questions, please jump in. We've got about 25 minutes left.
You do have a few questions in the chat, and I don't know if you're getting the Facebook questions.
I'm not getting the Facebook questions. Why don't you throw those my way, and we'll answer them.
Sure. There's just one that you need to cover from Timothy. How do you know how much delay is coming from each source so you can apply the proper delay? And this was coming from a while back in the conversation.
Yeah, so when we were talking about audio delay. Well, usually, like I said, video is coming in slower than the audio. So adding delay to the audio is usually the best situation. Now, if you have two different sources of video that are not coming in at the same rate, that's when you have to add a video delay. But that's generally not an issue. I would highly recommend, if you're building a system, use all SDI cameras, or use all the same camera if you can. That's really what, if you really, really care, you use all the exact same cameras. Like, instead of using a 12x and a 30x, you use all 30x's. Why? Because just the slightest difference, if you really, really care, you use the exact same camera. Now, if you're using the exact same camera, the exact same capture card, the exact same computer, there will be no difference in the video delay. But if you're using webcam, an IP camera, and an SDI camera, they all could have different, slightly variants, and then you might actually have to do video delay. So now you're doing video delay, then you're doing audio delay. It gets a little tricky. What I would recommend is obviously use the same cameras if possible. And then, get that audio, try to fix that audio delay as best as possible. Now, just high level, and then questions, throw them in here. There's XLR cables on the audio side. There's 1/4-inch guitar cables, and there's 3.5 millimeter cables. On the video side, we've got Ethernet. Ethernet's used for NDI. Ethernet's used for camera control, powering cameras. HDMI is for video. And then SDI, also for video. The difference between SDI and HDMI reliably 35, 50 feet. SDI can go hundreds of feet. So you can really go pretty far. A Ethernet cable taps out at about 100 meters. Now, there's a lot of different qualities of cables, so it's important to know the differences. Cat5e is really where the gigabit world starts. If you've got really old cables before Cat5, so Cat5, Cat4, those are usually can only do like 10 to 100 megabits per second, and we do not recommend them for any modern installation or anything having to do with video over IP. You really want to be using Cat5e or greater. And as we said, you can do up to 100 meters there. Now, HDMI 1.4 and HDMI 2.0, slightly different, but they can support up to 4K depending on what's going on, and you can go up to about 50 feet. Now, SDI has a lot, 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 different types. There's lots of different types. Regular SDI is like HD or like standard def. HD-SDI is 1.5 gigabits per second, that you can do 1080p at 30 frames per second uncompressed. And then 3G SDI, you can do 3 gigabits per second, that allows you to do 1080p at 60 frames per second. And now there's even like 12G that you can do at 4K. USB 2.0, USB 3.0, and then there's even Thunderbolt, which allows you to bring in like multiple cameras over Thunderbolt. Some live streaming hardware, obviously, you should know about. This headset is what I'm using here. Really popular. Audio interfaces, we looked at those. And then virtual audio cables are a very powerful tool to help you connect software together. Like right now, we're connecting vMix and Zoom together so that we can hear each other, see each other. So virtual audio cables are really good for that. Now, frame grabbers, I need to update this because really it's supposed to be capture cards, and everyone's going to get mad at me if I don't do this right. So this should be capture cards. Frame grabbers were back in the day when we would grab a frame, literally grab a frame of video, not all video. PCIe cards are for capturing multiple cameras, and PCIe cards can be put into a custom PC. This is a great thing to do for your customers, is to buy a custom PC tower and put PCIe cards in. Now you're turning an off-the-shelf desktop PC into a streaming computer that can have multiple inputs and outputs and really do some powerful stuff. And then we've also got video extenders. And the video extenders can extend HDMI, SDI over long runs. And those are usually pretty popular as well. Now, live streaming hardware, we've got document cameras, static cameras, and I'll show some of our newer cameras here. These cameras here are not PTZ. They are just static Z cams. In fact, I'm using a static Z cam right here. They have a lot of great uses. They're less expensive than PTZ cameras. This one has optical zoom, a 12x optical zoom lens. This one is our brand new 4K ePTZ camera. This one has digital zoom. Digital zoom generally gets a little bit pixelated if you zoom in 3x, 4x, 5x, and we'll show an example of it. I'll show an example of it right now. Actually, it's probably good timing. This one has two SDI outputs. One is the full view. One is the zoomed in view. And what I'd like to do is actually show this side by side. So SDI1 is the wide angle view. SDI2 is the zoomed in view. Now, the cool thing about this camera, and I'll stick it right here, is that you get two cameras in one. And it's only $499. So it's a really, really great deal, this camera here. It has PoE, but you can see when you start to get after like about 3x, you get a little bit of digital pixelation, because that is, when it's fully zoomed in, that's 8x. So that's 8x zoom. That's fully zoomed in. So that's just kind of a random example. I want to do some examples, obviously, during this presentation. There we go. Okay, guys, we only got about 15 minutes left. So if you guys want me to do, if you want to do Q&A, it's probably a good time. We've got control software, joysticks, cameras, audios, mixers. Do you want to do a little Q&A, Tess?
Sure, we've got a few more questions. I know there's another one coming in from Facebook. Is all the cameras that you're using in your studio PTZOptics? And what about noise reduction for ePTZ?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah, the best distance from the subject. A few questions in one.
So we're just about to start our private dealer trainings at 2 o'clock. And I actually just thought about it. I got to take a tiny break in between there to get some water. So we'll probably have to end this at like in about 5-10 minutes. But okay. Yes, all of the cameras in this studio are PTZOptics cameras. So let's see here. I thought that was the right camera. Here it is. So I got a bunch of cameras here. One up here that's connected to our Zoom call right now is the new HuddleCam 4K webcam. That's USB 3.0. So that one is connected to our Zoom call. And I'm excited to show that one. In fact, that is this camera right here. And it's actually got auto framing on. You can kind of see it's got that orange box around my face. So we're going to demonstrate that a little later. But all of the cameras that you're seeing here are PTZOptics cameras. Yes. Sorry, was there another question there?
There was a few questions in one. What's the best distance from the subject with one of your PTZOptics camera without loss of quality for full HD? That was 10, right?
Yes. So essentially, and we're going to go over that in the private dealer training in a moment too, but essentially with optical zoom, right? So with, what camera was that? Top 6. This camera, you can zoom in from 75 feet away from someone and get a head and shoulders shot because it's optical zoom. So we can zoom in from 75 feet away. I'm not even going to go in any further than that. But we can literally go in, maybe I will. You can go in 75 feet away. I think this is a 20x. We also have 30x cameras. So with optical zoom, it's always HD. But with digital zoom, it has a 4K sensor. So once we get past 2x, we're at 1080. When we get to 3x, we're at 720. When we go to a 4x, we're at I think it's 640 by 480. And there's a calculator on our website that shows this. The more you zoom in, the more you can pan tilt, which is kind of nice. You can call presets, things like that. So there's definitely a give and take. With these ePTZ cameras, you can have a zoom limit. So you can limit the amount of zoom. So if you know you're using a 720p video production, you can limit it to 3x zoom. So you can't go past 720p, for example. And we'll go over all of that in the private dealer training coming up soon, which hopefully you guys all have access to. Okay, Jim Teague is saying the current network joystick looks very twitchy. Looks like the one you sell. We usually use PTZ software you offer, but want a joystick. Oh man, I can't read the whole thing. I would say my personal favorite literally is the iOS app. You guys saw how like smooth it was. Our new joystick is very, very good. In fact, the generation 3 has had some really major upgrades. So anything past generation 3 is really good. Can we set presets on the Stream Deck with the PTZOptics control software? Yes. We have a whole video on that on our YouTube channel. PTZOptics cameras can be controlled with the Elgato Stream Deck. So watch the video. There's a whole video on it. Can we put the PCIe cards in a Thunderbolt expansion chassis for laptop support? Yes. Again, just make sure your laptop, if you're buying a laptop for streaming, make sure it's got Thunderbolt because you're going to want that for what you're doing. Jim uses vMix with standalone PTZOptics camera software. vMix only offers PTZ support at the 4K level. So if you don't have 4K, then you have to either upgrade or use the standalone software. I'm assuming that's why Jim's using the standalone software. So yeah, Tess, and everybody here, if you have any questions that you can't save for the private dealer training, which Tess, we can share that with everybody. Anybody who wants to join the private dealer training, please feel free.
Want me to share that in the chat or just ask for requests?
Just if you'd like to come to the private training, just ask Tess. You can share it in
I put my email address in the YouTube chat.
Okay. So just ask
that was
Tess
a
now.
event. So if you want to come, just shoot me an email and I can send you the link.
So I'm going to start getting ready for that because we've got to get ready for that private Zoom session. I got to restart this Zoom from the public Zoom to the private Zoom. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. And then we're going to relaunch at 2 o'clock for all of our private dealer trainings. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope that was a good refresh for folks who are just getting started. And now we're going to do our private dealer session. That's going to start at 2 o'clock. So this gives me about 10 minutes to get ready. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. All right. So I'll see some of you in our private dealer session in just a moment. All right, Tess, I'll see you soon.